Reading 94 from the Psychological Commentaries on the Teaching of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky by Dr. Maurice Nicoll, Volume 3. Great Animal House, October 11th, 1947. The Work-Octave. 1. The first note, do, of the work-octave was once defined as evaluation of the work ideas. Since the work-octave is an ascending octave, the next note is re. This was defined as the application of the work ideas to oneself. The third note, mi, was defined as the realization of personal difficulties. Now the next note, fa, lies beyond the place of missing semitone. This means, psychologically, that a special shock has to be given here to reach the stage of understanding represented by the note fa. In this connection, it was said previously that do must sound strongly enough to begin with. That is, the evaluation of the work must be great enough to give sufficient strength for anyone to pass the note mi and reach the note fa, apart from other things. It is obvious that if a person lightly esteems the work, or cannot understand anything about it, or thinks in his secret internal side that it is nonsense, and so on, then he will not value it. So he will not apply it to himself or be able to pass to any degree of self-realization by its means, or sustain anything coming from it adverse to his self-esteem. We will speak later about the third note, mi, defined as the realization of personal difficulties. Now, between this note mi and the note re beneath it, defined as the application of the work ideas to oneself, lie all the processes of connecting the work with what one observes. If we connect the work with what we observe, then things become arranged in right order in us. This must be understood. The work, not life, sets things in right order. As we are mechanically, things are in wrong order. Unimportant things are made important, and important things are made unimportant. On one occasion, man was compared by G to a 3-roomed flat in which wrong articles of furniture were mixed up with right ones in every room. Since in life we live by false values and endless lies, this is inevitable. One definition of truth is right order. That is, when things are arranged in their right order, there is truth. The body is built up and integrated in this way, the more important parts being served by the less important, the brain itself being the highest, and so the most carefully nourished and protected, and served by all other organs. So, in the work, the law of the octave is sometimes called the law of order of manifestation. It is evident to you that things can be connected in right or in wrong order. If in right order, there is truth. If in wrong order, there is something false. What is a lie but things in wrong order? It is interesting to reflect on this aspect of the law of the octave, or the law of 7, both terms being used. In the work octave, it will be seen that unless do sounds first strongly enough, re will never be reached. Without do, re cannot sound, and without re, mi cannot sound. One note depends on another. No note can possibly exist by itself. So unless at do there is some real evaluation that increases, the further notes will sound weakly, and everything will die out. But all 3 notes can strengthen each other once they start sounding, through the practical verification of the work, whereby we internally see its value more and more. When this is the case, the gap between mi, fa, may begin to be bridged, and the note fa begin to sound. This note fa is always a new thing in one, as if another being with a new understanding had begun to grow in one's being. The note Fa. In every aspect of life, whatever people may study for their living, it is difficult and rare to reach the note Fa. A pianist may get as far as Do Re, or even to Mi, but rarely further. The note Fa is not struck. That means simply that the pianist is a Do Re Mi man, and so nothing is unique, nothing, save perhaps technique, is exceptional in his playing. The same applies to every branch of life, in whatever branch of life you are. To strike Fa means at once that you are at a far higher level than others are. The reason is that the person has made some curiously indefinable individual effort that lifts him beyond this gap, this missing semitone, and establishes him at the note Fa. No teacher can do this for the person. It is, as I say, a curiously indefinable effort that only the man from his deepest sense of himself can make. Imitation will never do it, for that only increases personality. In brief, in some way essence is touched, which can in turn touch real I, and then the man is whatever he does, or whatever he does is the man. Of course, if a man has, in a previous recurrence, learned something that essence can remember, then essence will remember earlier in his next recurrence. A fact that explains many curious things about those to whom, by common consent, genius is attributed. In such a case, the note Fa will be struck early, and the notes Do, Re, Mi passed quickly. It is surely obvious to even the most formatory material mind that it is impossible to explain the lives of some people in terms of one life. I have often thought this is clearest in the case of some musicians. Let us turn to the note Mi in the work octave, defined as the realization of personal difficulties. At this stage of the work, represented by Mi, one's consciousness has increased to the point of one's becoming more aware of the kind of person one is. Now the realization of personal difficulties must not merely depress one or make one negative. To take Mi in that way is not connecting the work with what one observes. To realize as a fact that one is not the perfect man or woman that one imagined hitherto belongs to the necessary action of the work, which is to increase consciousness. The work says, find out facts about yourself by self-observation. An increase of consciousness reveals what you are. You realize, for example, after some years, that you are not one but many different contradictory I's, all with different desires. In that case, you have begun to escape from the hypnotism of one form of imagination, and so have become more conscious. A man or woman hypnotized by life, full of illusions and self-satisfactory fantasies, is not conscious. Remember also that self-observation is to let a ray of light into the inner darkness of yourself. Yes, you yourself. To realize one's personal difficulties is a state comparable with the driver awakening from his drunken sleep in the inn and going out and seeing the wretched state of his horse and carriage. If at such a stage, taking my own case, I can think from the driver and not from Nicole, I may have a chance of hearing Fa beginning to sound in me. This is a new feeling of myself, not the feeling of Nicole. The driver can understand the work, while Nicole cannot. I refer to my own case. It was once explained to you that positive ideas are necessary to lift a man from Mi to Fa. The first requisite for positive ideas is the belief in greater mind, or the ray of creation. The ideas of this work are positive ideas. In life, we can notice the increase of negative ideas accompanied by the increase of negative views and negative emotions. Now, all these eyes that wish to work are present at the note Mi, as well as the consciousness of one's personal difficulties. You will see clearly that this stage represented by the note me cannot be reached if a man takes himself as one. The eyes that wish to work are not the personal difficulties, for example. They must be seen as quite distinct from eyes that say, do not wish to work. The eyes that wish to work wish to go up to Fa. All this means that a man must see and tolerate his multiplicity. Where one was narrow and contracted to the illusion of oneness, one is now an expanse of many people where choice is possible. In other words, the inner state, as regards the work, represented by the note me, is a very wide one, due to a broadening of consciousness. It is like looking over a wide garden and seeing what is useless and what is useful. What are you going to select? Which eyes will you go with? Remember, you can do nothing unless you choose the right eye to go with. If you go with eyes that drag you down, you will be dragged down. And again, if you have no idea of inner separation, of separating from uncomfortable, vain, or deceitful, or bad eyes, if in short you say I to everything taking place in you, then you cannot sound me, and so you cannot grow. Your level of being will remain where it is, and you will attract the same life as before. Some people cannot reach the note me because they do not observe themselves over a sufficient period. I quote from a recent letter. If one observes oneself over the period of a week, it is possible to discover what one's personal difficulties are, because during the space of a week, they are bound to recur. One may go through a day without noticing them, but one cannot go through a week without coming up against them, even if one goes away into different surroundings. I have noticed 3 things that make me lose force. I also noticed several ways of getting force. The same 3 things may not all recur next week, but probably one of them will, or 2, or perhaps even all 3. And they are the same things that have always spoilt one's life. When a man, a woman, reach sufficiently the stage of understanding of the work called the note me, through a strengthening of the notes do and re, then they are close to receiving help from the work. If they will be passive to their faults and difficulties, acknowledge them and separate from them, then, as was said, the note fa may begin to sound in them. But as was said, this note is an utterly different feeling. It is something delicate and new, yet this is the beginning of meeting real I, which is nothing like what they thought was real I. It is possible to say that some may not accept this new feeling of what they are.